Anonymous. Oh, this is a great one, by the way. This is why I say you guys are awesome. The questions keep getting better. What do you do with a potential client requests a sales call? I am nomadic and trying to schedule calls is the worst. Gina says, what is the secret to a successful business conference that I will be a vendor at? Success equals lead and or conversions and meeting setup. Priyankar, hope I'm saying that right. He says, I have an agency. We provide motion graphics, video editing, and social media content. How can I get more clients? What's up, guys? We live? Did it work? Did the magic happen? Waiting on my slow Mexican internet. We're there. Are we in? We did it. Okay, cool. Cool. Welcome back, everybody. Excited for the agency adventures you guys are building. I think the questions are just getting smarter and smarter over time, and that's cool for me as a community creator to see the community kind of flourish as a whole. That's just, I don't know, badass to me. Which is to me like a testament to how awesome you guys are. Like my only role in that is just making sure the cool people get in. Anyway, before we get rock and rolling, just a quick little announcement. I don't really have much for you guys today, but we got a cool library of like swipe file and tools. If you go to beyondagencyprofits.com and check out the store has like basically a lot of cool shit. I don't know how else to say that, but it's got a lot of cool shit. Like things that I believe will help make your life easier, faster, better with less mistakes. And also to kind of scale more intelligently. I've done this 3 times and I probably made a lot of mistakes on those ways. And if you could ask me if I could go back and redo some things, like you can do this so much better, faster, easier, and not that there's a time penalty you pay for ignorance, and some of our tools in swipe file can help you shrink that tremendously, especially for those of you guys who want to like increase or up level your income in that process and do that in the phoneless, meetingless kind of Frankie Finn Beach kind of way. So that's all I got for you guys on that. Let's get rocking and rolling with the questions. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Finn proudly brings you our weekly Q&A. To the gun show we are, the dad guns. Try and act like you're not impressed. It cannot be done. The shenanigans never stop here. Anyways, let's talk questions. First, we got a Bart. This is a carryover from last week, but I probably dropped the ball on this one because I meant to answer it, but I think it'll be useful, especially for those of you guys who are doing webinars. So he says, next week I have a webinar about outsourcing. I know from my experience that people will want to know the job board I use for recruitment. As soon as I provide it, they lose interest in my course because everyone is a genius and they think it's enough to post an ad and recruit. Everyone seems to think they can figure out onboarding and managing people on their own. In my course, there's recruitment, management tools, onboarding, and people management. In the past, I have had many messages from people that went on a job board, recruited some idiot because they didn't know the entire process, or had total chaos in communication because they don't know how to manage outsourced employees from a different culture and time zone, and they blame me, and all I did was giving them the link to a job board. What should I include in the webinar to convince people that they need my course and can't handle their process on their own? So, Bart, this is a 2-part question for me. Let's talk about those 2 kind of distinct parts. One of those is what Dusan Dukovic in Straight Line Leadership would call your internal stance. And one of those is the logistics of how do you actually convert people on a webinar. So I just want to read you something that I noticed that I don't think is a very useful stance to the outcome you want. You say, as soon as I provide it, they lose interest in my course because everyone is a genius and they think it's enough to post an ad and recruit. So that's kind of like the understanding, like, the internal stance, everyone's fucking stupid. And I'm not saying there aren't a lot of stupid people. There are out there. But I would suggest, obviously, if you're working with people and you like them, they're probably not stupid people. So I wouldn't assume that everyone thinks they're a genius. And I think it's a better assumption to operate from a place of where are the gaps in my communication to show them. So I'll tell you, for me, what I would do is I would showcase very, very side by side. I'm probably going to do some of this same stuff, by the way, in the agency world, because people think the same things about cold outreach and drumming up business, where they're looking for some magic script in the same way they're looking for some magic recruitment site. And the people who perpetually struggle have a certain mindset, and then the people who get it usually have a systematic process that is repeatable and replicable and all of that. And so, like, simply contrasting those. So I say that because the more you start with the perspective that, hey, it's up to me to communicate what those differences are, you're going to have a better place. I see kids coming in. We may have sitting outside my room, my office. My little guy's outside. So anyway, as I mentioned, showcasing those two things side by side. So I would show that, like, the people who win, who get A players consistently, have like a 4 or 5 step process, and then the people who consistently don't win are looking for some magic recruitment site, and those are the people who end up with B, C, and D level players, people who are not quite good enough to fire but not so easy to replace. So we want to have like a systematic process. So if I'm in your shoes and I'm creating this webinar, what I would think about is where I want to finish. And so the way I always do this is really, really simple, is I give away the ideas for free, and then the paid stuff is to assist you with the implementation. So I would lay out kind of the entire recruiting roadmap, including like where do you post stuff, how important it is to onboard them, how important it is to have training, what kind of stuff to communicate, and I would teach people all of that for free. And then when I got to the end of the webinar, I would say, well, and ideally, obviously not just say this, but back this up. Like, I have a swipe file for which site to use. We have a hiring ad that works. We have an onboarding template you can just swipe from us. And we got like communication emails you can send to your employees so they actually like want to work for you and enjoy, staying there. And I would set that up so that once they get the big idea of this is how recruitment works, like, it just makes it more sense to better, faster, easier buy it from you at the end of that. So I say those are the two pieces. It's like a lot of times when you're creating a webinar or anything that's like, sort of a marketing piece you're using to put out in the world to like, kind of bring people to you, in this case for a course sale, you want to really think about where you're going to finish. And so to me, like, if where you're going to finish is selling the course, the course is designed to make implementation easier, the more you're going to sell it. And so this is, by the way, for me personally, this has dramatically shifted what I thought a course was. So many, many years ago, like, a course to me was like 45 modules of like, I'm going to learn you stuff. Now it's more like, this is our template, our swipe file, and I have a training video for how to use that template, but it's designed to like go out there in the world and use it, not to like theorize about it, not to watch 45 videos, but to actually go do something. And so if you think about like designing your process so that you create a result for people, like, I think you're just gonna have a better experience with selling those webinars. So then what happens is, by the way, your webinar actually turns into a helpful thing because you're actually laying out the roadmap for success, in your case for successful recruiting, and then it just makes sense if they buy into that big idea to like then buy your tools that make the implementation of big ideas so much easier. So I hope that's helpful, my dude. I know I'm a little late on the draw and missed the timeline. I had a couple people ask me to tag them on this one. Let's see if I can do this. Sometimes I can tag people. Sometimes I can't. Not working right now. What's up with tagging not working? I guess I'll just have to tag you guys after. At Hendrick. No tagging is happening in this. Henrik says, cold calling BS stats. I watched a video where Pavlo cold calling live people he find on Google Maps without websites. But the thing is, I cannot recreate it by far. We called 100 businesses like this. Only 10 actually picked up in the business hours. Of the 10, there was no interest. Has anyone successfully done this strategy, or is it BS? I'm going to tell you personally that I think it is BS. And I'll tell you for a couple of reasons. And I want to tell you guys the deeper principles behind here so that you can do this stuff right. Because what happens is people jump to like, hey, I'm not going to do cold calling, I'm going to do cold email. Or then they go, I'm going to make content. Or then they go like, I'm going to run Facebook ads. And they bring the same broken principles, and so they find none of them work. And I'll tell you one of the principles, and I've kind of rapped about this a lot, but 80% of the people in your market, like regardless of which niche you're in, and so this is true of all you guys, like are mostly broke and struggling and don't believe in paying for shit. So I use the analogy in the book. It's an old Dan Kennedy thing, but people always give me credit. So anytime I get credit for a Dan Kennedy thing, I'm like super stoked about that. But he said, if you sell shoes, your first instinct will be to sell to somebody who's barefoot because they need what you're selling. But what you actually want to do is sell to somebody who has a closet full of 200 pairs of shoes because they have a proven history of buying shoes. And it's counterintuitive, but if you sell marketing services, your first instinct will be to sell for need instead of selling to somebody who has like a proven history of buying the kinds of things that you sell. Because a lot of times you'll think, oh, they're already marketing, they got it all figured out. And they have actually more problems, not less. So I compare this, if you get this wrong, like for example, like imagine I say to you, you're going to go sell barbecue pork ribs. And then I send you off to the Jewish Vegetarian Conference. So you go to the Jewish Vegetarian Conference and you have to sell barbecue ribs. Well, I don't care what messaging you have. I don't care what your offer is. I don't care how well you say it. I don't care how good your pitch is. I don't care how awesome your testimonials are. You ain't selling any fucking ribs, right? Because you're at the Jewish Vegetarian Conferences, and as far as pork is concerned, those are the non-buyers of the non-buyers. And the flip side of that is if I sent you to an Alabama football game, you would probably have a hard time not selling out in the first 5 minutes of standing there, because like that's where all college football and barbecue and like being in the South, like all that just kind of goes together, right? So I say that to you because if you try and sell a website to somebody who has no history of buying a website in 2024, what do you think that says about them? And I can only think of two things. One is they already believe they don't need or want a website. Or two, they're fucking broke. And ideally, and probably, I should say, not ideally, but probably both of those would be true. Right? So we're in 2024. Like, website's been out 30 years. If somebody is 30 years has not put up a website for their business, what makes you think on day after 30 years and a day, they're suddenly going to see the light and go, I need a fucking website? So this is counterintuitive, but I'll tell you where this matters, okay? So I have, like, some lawyer clients that are still with me today, and they literally have 100 websites. 100 websites. Like, if that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what'll blow your mind. But a lot of times we think, like, why would somebody with 99 or 100 websites need more? And there's always a reason why they need another pair of shoes. Maybe they need a Spanish version. Maybe they need a specialty version of their most expensive thing. Maybe they need one just for a practice area, or one for just one specific location. Like, some of my lawyers have 5 locations, so they want each of those 5 sites, or each of those 5 locations, to have their own site. And like I said, and then there's the lawyer profile version, and then there's the press and media version. So they have like literally 100 websites. So if you, whether you cold call or cold message or run some Facebook ads, if your basic idea is you're trying to sell somebody who does not have a website to get one, to go from 0 to 1, you're trying to sell shoes to somebody who has no fucking history of buying shoes. And if you simply like realize that your market is an 80-20 and you eliminate 80% of the non-buyers to begin with, and you focus on how do I sell one more website to somebody who's already got 100, you're going to have a much easier time. Whether you cold call or cold email, doesn't matter, because they already believe in buying websites and they've voted with their credit card again and again and again. I always say, if you have a choice, trust behavior, not words. If you ask the broke person with no website if they want to grow, they'll say yeah. If you ask the guy with 100 websites in 8 locations if he wants to grow, he'll say yeah. But one of those is actually investing and doing it, right? So if you could illustrate this 80-20 visually, like, so imagine, for example, let's take an easy number. There's 100. Let's say you work with dentists. I know you probably don't, but like, imagine your niche, whatever it is. We could put 100 of them in a room. If we had 100 dentists all lined up side by side, and there was an 80-20, 80% of them, this is the whole segment, but this is 80% of them. 80% of them have 20% of the money between them, meaning they're like, so 80 of those lawyers, like, let's say there's, I don't know, $1,000 in total. 80 of those lawyers have $200 between them. And even though they're large in number, they're the brokest segment. Now you compare that to, there's a 20% that has 80% of the money and spends 80% of the money on growth. So I say that because part of your job is not cold calling 100 people. There's a step before that where you identify who are the fucking 20 people who buy this shit. And it leaves evidence, right? Like, if I Google you and you ain't got a website and you don't have any information about you, Like, why would I try and sell you one? The opposite is true. If I see you got 100 websites already, and you got an Instagram, and you're paying for TikTok, and you got an Instagram, that's a good sign. Proceed. So just the idea that we're going to sell people who don't buy shit, like, I'm not saying that never will ever happen in history, but that's a fucking losing strategy. And also in the 80-20, because I mentioned 20% of the people got all the money, there's an 80-20 within the 80-20 where there's one guy out of that 100, one guy who's got more money than the other 99 combined. And so again, like, your job is not, how do I contact all 100 people and just call everybody and offer them some shit? What I call the digital bukkake. Like, a lot of this is rifle. Like, before you can shoot a rifle, you got to aim at a target. You got to figure out which target is even worth aiming at. And that is in itself, I think, a strategy that most people miss, because they immediately want to jump to step 2, which is let's mass message people, instead of identifying step 1, who are the people who can buy this shit and actually pay for it again and again. It sounds small, but you do it wrong. You're at the Jewish Vegetarian Conference trying to sell ribs, and nobody's going to buy no matter what the fuck you say, because they don't buy that shit. They just don't buy it, and they're not going to buy it later. You take the exact same messaging and you go to the college football game, your life will get easier. So I would not personally replicate that strategy, and I think it's a waste of time, to be honest with you. And the same thing is true even if you ran a Facebook ad and said, don't have a website, let me build a website. Even if they finally, after 30 years, invest in a website, they're not probably hiring the best. They're not probably paying top dollar. They probably look at that as a giant leap forward for the company compared to the guy who's like, spends $250,000 every couple of years on websites. So you want to sell to people who have a proven history of buying. So to me, your step 1 is not how do I pick up the phone and call people. It's identifying the people who are buying it. Who's got a closet full of shoes in my industry? That's step 1. And then if you want to, you can cold call those people or cold email them or run an ad targeted specifically at those people. But if you skip that step, like, life's going to be miserable, because like you'll just be trying to sell shoes to people who are barefoot and going, but I made it 30 years with no shoes. And it sounds like this. They'll say, well, we've grown 3 decades on referrals. Why should we get a website now? And you're just going to like, that's all you're going to do. You're just going to bang your head against the wall and go, are these people retarded? You're just literally, I'll tell you, 60% of the agency mistakes I see are literally people just talking to the wrong types of clients. That's how big of a mistake this is. So like, don't get that detail wrong, because it's critically important. It's more about them than it is about you. I've said this before, but we help winners win more, not turn losers into winners in the game of business, right? Like, if they're already winning, cool. Help them win more. Our man Oral, this was a deep one, and I love this question, my dude. You're such a brilliant individual. I think a lot of people will benefit just from the fact that you asked this question. So you said, hi, Frankie and group, would be interested in your opinion. The case I experience again and again in companies that they have huge difficulties positioning themselves clearly and finding a functioning messaging, specifically getting to a useful answer to the question of why one should choose them over the competition. The wildest exercises are performed in this field. The maximum of excess I experienced, I was at a retreat where an alleged positioning guru gave an 8-hour lecture that threw the positioning of the company into chaos for years. Cost of the one-day retreat was $25,000 plus fees for the follow-up consultation. Sharpening messages is my superpower, they say, which is why I'm wondering if I should ditch Google Ads, my current playing field, and go full on into messaging. More revenue potential since it's an ultra painful pain point. Less recurring revenue potential in individualized projects. I can work through my proven messaging process, but a lot of manual thinking remains. Please enlighten me, you beautiful and sharp-minded people. I don't know if this will enlighten you. I'm just going to share some thoughts about kind of what I thought about that. The longer and longer I've been doing this, the more I think about how do I solve problems for people by creating tools and resources and systems, rather than like me being the one-to-one, I'll figure out everything for you. Because I'll tell you why this is an important distinction, is because tools have infinite leverage and you don't, right? Like if somebody wants to one-on-one meet with you, how many one-on-one meetings can you do before your calendar's full? If somebody, wants access to your proven, in your case, like positioning or brand positioning kind of resource, whatever, like they can have infinite access to that without it coming off you. So I'll tell you where those two worlds kind of overlap for me is I think, at least for me, I'll tell you what happened is I did SEO for like 10 years exclusively. Like that was like my bread and butter. And so if people ask me what I did, like I mentally carried the identity that I was an SEO guy. And what I ultimately came to realize as I did this later, that was an immensely valuable tool, but I was bigger than the tool itself, meaning like you couldn't define me just as the SEO guy. In the same way that I don't think you're the Google Ads guy, nor do I think you're the positioning guy, even though those are two very, very, very useful tools in the tool chest. And what I was personally thinking about as I read your question is that there's an overlap between those two tools. Between people struggle with positioning and people struggle with Google Ads. And I'll give you a simple example of this, okay? Chris, who you may see in our WhatsApp group, because you're in, I'm not actually sure if you're in our WhatsApp chat anymore. But anyways, one of the things he was talking about is he's doing work with veterinarians. And veterinarians mostly get clients who come in and complain about the bill because it's always a shock. Like most times when people bring in their cat, oh, my cat has the shits, they weren't expecting it to be $800. And so they're like, holy shit. But there's a subsection in there of like certain animals that people will pay almost anything for. An example of that is horses. If somebody has a problem with a horse and they come in, like it costs $25,000 to buy the horse, they have trainers, they pay top dollar. Nobody bats an eye if you say it'll be $2,200 to fix your horse. In fact, they pay for it happily. And so one of the things he learned by just kind of talking with these veterinarians is realizing they wish they could have more of these kind of high-end animals. Now, you and I both know that is a positioning problem. Like the way most veterinarians position themselves is what I call a come one, come all. We're a veterinarian. Bring your animals. Bring your animal problems to us. We do blank, blank, and blank. Like if most businesses, this is their messaging. Frankie Finn's company, we do blank, blank, and blank. Call now. Like that's what their website says. That's what their business card says. That's what happens if people call them. And you see this like in construction where people say, we do decks and we do fences. They don't say, hey, we build luxury homes for CEOs, right? Because even though they could build a luxury home for CEOs, because they don't position that way. So my thinking was that if I was going to do this, I would, in your shoes, be building a tool or a resource that covers both the positioning and the Google Ads component for what they really, really want. So like, for example, like, you know, like I know you've done work with dentists, right? So like dentists, they struggle to get the higher end patients, the cosmetic procedures, the veneers, the implants, things like that. Well, you and I both know if you run a Google ad on keywords related to dental implants and you drive them to a landing page that's all about dental implants and you have a form that says get some information about dental implants, and then you got some follow-up emails about dental implants or some retargeting ads about dental implants, like lo and behold, on the other side of that is going to output dental implants because you positioned for that. You went to where the keywords were, you found those people and you got in front of them. You made ads and landing pages and things like that and material specific to what you wanted. All of that to me is positioning. So I see that as one possible way you could take that is to build a comprehensive system that includes both pieces, but you're not defined by that. You're the system owner. Like that's how a wealthy person to me is you're the system owner. The same way that a person would own a franchise, not the, hey, I'm your Google Ads guy and I'll run Google Ads because you want me to run Google Ads. By the way, if you guys have posted any comments, I haven't seen them now. Sometimes they don't come through the back end of the system, and then I just see them on the replay after. So anyway, the other thing I was going to say is I'm not actually, believe it or not, even though I wrote a whole book about like don't do custom work, there's an asterisk on that. Like there's an asterisk on custom work, and it's very, very simple. Do custom work for you when it is A, fun, and B, paid well enough that you go, I can't believe I get paid to do this. Okay? So to me, if you're doing custom work and the work itself is his own reward because you like hanging out with people at retreats and talking about positioning, then you have my stamp of approval to do as much custom shit as you want. Where people screw it up is they end up doing things they don't really want to be doing because they're trying to get money and they try and do custom on a scale where it just doesn't work. But having said that, if it's enjoyable to you, like, do it, my man. Like, go for it. So those are my two pieces. Is A, you could build a system that includes those two pieces for a specific person, in designing it in mind so that what works for one person is the same tool and resource that you can roll out to a bunch of people. And then you're not solving the positioning problem one time for each custom. You're thinking about, how do I solve it for a whole audience of people, say dentists. A lot of dentists want the high-end cosmetic stuff. How can I create a positioning package and a Google Ads package that all works together to get them the stuff they want? And then you're still solving that problem, but instead you're solving it at a high level where you're doing it through a tool, or you're just doing shit that's fun for you. Either way, I think that's a win. So I don't know if that's helpful to you or not, but I just wanted to share those thoughts. Anonymous. Oh, this is a great one, by the way. This is why I say you guys are awesome. The questions keep getting better. What do you do with a potential client requests a sales call? I am nomadic and trying to schedule calls is the worst. So for those of you guys who've never been in this person's experience, they posted it anonymously, so I don't see who they are. But for those of you guys who been in this experience, it's very, very weird taking calls when you travel. So I got a real life story that actually happened to me. So I took my ex to a trip to Hawaii. And one of the things that happens is when you travel to Hawaii from the mainland, at least I was on the Eastern time zone, the time zone changes 6 hours. 6 hours. And I forgot to block out my calendar the day after I landed. And so what ended up happening is a guy scheduled a call with me at 9 a.m. Eastern that was at 3 a.m. Hawaii time. 3 in the morning, right? So and the worst part of it, we were staying at an Airbnb. When we got there, there was one floor of this place that was the Airbnb, and then there was an upper level floor that was like a family lived there. And they were renting the downstairs space as their ongoing Airbnb. And the way it works, at least in Hawaii, where we were at, is there's no windows. It's screened because it's perfect weather all year round. So you're really only trying to keep out bugs and rain. And so the windows are open, completely open, meaning you can hear all the sounds. So I couldn't conduct a sales call inside because I'd wake up the people upstairs. So I actually ran an extension cord that they had. I ran it 100 feet into the wilderness, and I sat on the edge of the Wi-Fi, picked up my laptop, made a call through Skype. I ended up closing the client too. I remember the conversation with my girlfriend. She said, "Oh, how did it go?" When I came back to bed, and I said, "It's a $5,000 sale. He's going to be an awesome client. Now go back to bed." That was a conversation, right? So obviously, having a sales call at 3 in the morning, running an extension cord into the wilderness in your fucking Airbnb is not ideal. So I just wanted to explain that to you guys, so you guys understand the nature of the question, those of you guys who are not nomadic. So here's the thing that is very, very counterintuitive, is to actually say yes to the call, and I found this transition normal. Say, yep, I'm happy to do a call, but I want to be very respectful of your time. And so before we jump on a call, I want to send you a quick little video with what I had in mind so that we're efficient on that call. And what happens is, if you have done the Loom process correctly, it's really just an 80-20 of a sales call. It's literally a sales call in fast forward. You're answering the questions that they would ask. And so you essentially do the sales call by just sending him a video. And then what ends up happening is 3 scenarios. Scenario number 1 is, this is the most common one, and this happens after you get better at this, but they just say, I'm in, let's do it. How do I get started? And they just buy it and never talk to you, even though they requested a sales call. Scenario 2 is, they say no, and you save yourself a call because they're like, oh shit, that's way more than I had a budget for. And you say, that's cool, man. Contact me when it is. I can't really do it cheaper than that, but happy to talk later as, if you get a big settlement or whatever. And you save yourself from having to do a call. Now, the third scenario is they say, I got a question for you about it. And those are the people who are super warm, but have 1 or 2 last questions. Usually that question is a variation of, will this work for me? And so what happens is, you may want to do a call, but instead of being this hour-long back-and-forth convincing call, it's a 5-minute, here's my scenario, blah, 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 can you help? Or you just say, hey, I'm on the road right now, it'd be easier to answer the question in email or in text. Can you just shoot it over and I'll see what I can do? And if you respond to that question in video as well, or in audio, if you got like the person's, like WhatsApp or something where you can leave an audio, what happens is you can bypass that whole call. And here's the crazy part. You actually agreed to call in the beginning. You said, yes, happy to do a call. Want to be very, very respectful of you and your time. So I'm going to put together a little video and send you it before we do a call because I want to make sure we're on the same page. And that's how you get out of calls, by the way. And then what will happen is over time, you'll get that process more and more dialed in, and you'll just you'll hear the same question 10 times in a row. And so you'll update it into the video, and that question will just disappear, and you'll just get people go, okay, let's get started. And they won't request calls anymore. But having said that, there's a tendency to think that if they're buying, that you're automatically entitled to give over your time and schedule a call. And I think time is your most valuable, precious resource, and you should be very, very reluctant to give it up, especially for a sales call when the details of what they're buying can be summarized in a video. And here's the crazy part that took me a lot of years to really understand. They prefer that. They're just so programmed to do calls that they think they need them. But when you actually just summarize, here's what this is, and here's how much it costs, and here's how it works, and here's what you can expect from us, and here's what it'll look like after, and if you want to get started, here's what that would look like. Like, they actually really appreciate that, especially busy, successful people who got money and don't have time to be jumping on calls with everybody. So yeah, hope that's helpful, my dude. Or dudette, since you posted anonymously. Blake says, does anyone have a streamlined process for creating WordPress sites for new clients with a template of some sorts? Or do you just mainly hire freelancers, or do you use your own web developers to custom build new websites for clients? I'm looking to see if there's a way to speed up my website building process so that I can get these to my new clients pretty fast in the kickoff phase. I spend a lot of time making these, and I feel like my time could be better spent elsewhere. Agreed that your time could be better spent elsewhere, Blake. So this is going to be the subject of book 2, is really like how to get paid for marketing assets rather than how to getting paid for you, the problem solver. In this case, custom building websites. And I'll give you, I think the best way to kind of illustrate this through a story. So I think there's 2 ways to solve that problem. 3 ways, I should say, that like potentially could make sense for you. Way number 1 is you actually build everything on templates and make that the value. And this only works, by the way, if you have a tight niche. But my favorite example of this, Tarek came in our mastermind, and he had a cleaning company for years, and then he decided to do marketing for cleaning companies. And one of the things that happened in that process is he would take these old, ugly, archaic websites. They looked like they were built on GeoCities in 1999. And he would take their website and he would bring them into like the new age with an actual like sharp looking website, and had sales materials. But there was one piece on there that was extra useful. So the number one problem that cleaning companies have with their website, even though they don't know it's a website problem, is that people call them all day long and they say, how much is it for blank? How much is it to get an office cleaned? How much is it to clean a bedroom? How much is it to hire for a maid for 3 hours? And they just they get this call over and over and over, and then people say, hang up and say, okay, I'll call you back, and they don't call them back, and they don't buy anything, and it just interrupts their day. And one of the things he figured out is he put a little quoting widget on the site and says, tell us about what you're trying to get clean, and we'll give you a quote right now on the site. And what happened is they got less overall phone calls, but those phone calls that were left were like 100% way more buyer intent. They were like, hey, I'm interested in the $1,000 office cleaning you guys have lifted up on your website. How do we get started with that? And so when he originally came to me, his question was, how do I get more paying website clients? And that to me is actually a very middle class question where you're trying to essentially get paid a salary. How do I get paid to build stuff? How do I get paid to do work? And to me, a much better question is, if you think like a wealthy person, where now you own an asset. Like, he's created a website and a chat widget that would not just work for one cleaning company, it would like slight modifications. And so we came up with the offer together, like, instead of selling him and his web design and his expertise, let's sell more of this website that's already built. In other words, we did this once, now let's get paid for it twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and so forth. And so we came up with an offer that was something along the lines of like, hey, this website installed on your domain will eliminate all the price shoppers and tire kickers, and what's left will be only people who are ready to sign up and buy your cleaning services. And if you want, we can just install it on your domain, and for just $199 a month or $299 a month, I forget the price, you can try it for 60 days and if for free. And if it doesn't eliminate the tire kickers, just let me know and I'll install your old website back. But if you want, all it costs is you can lease it to us from $200 a month. And now what happens is he creates this recurring cash flow well into the future, and there's almost no delivery because he already made the website. He's got to change their phone number, their brand colors, change a little bit of messaging, but the template was done before they hired him, right? It was 90% finished before they said go. And so I say that to you because option number one is like create assets you probably already have and resell them. You're probably already doing this. You're just only getting paid once instead of 2 times for the assets you already created. So like think about reselling shit you've already made, not making new shit. So that's scenario number one, and it'll make your life. And here's the crazy part of that. It's actually better for clients. Like they don't want to have 6 months of back and forth in a custom website. Like if you got a chat widget and a thing that's working, just plug and play in my business, right? Like if it's working elsewhere, like I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Give me the shit you got that's working. And so it sells itself better because the template is more valuable than you and your custom website services. Second way you can potentially hire that, if you say, hey, I'm too much of a generalist, I got clients all over the board, our projects are too custom, just get a really good white label partner. If you guys want, I'll post a list of our recommended partners and you guys can grab those and just fulfill on it. Or the third option is hire a freelancer that does the same kind of thing. But if I was in your shoes, I would think about selling more assets and not about how do I get more web design clients, how do I make this process more streamlined to make a custom website, because I think a custom website is the problem, not the answer. Instead, think about like how do I resell marketing assets? What works for one plumber will work for 100 plumbers, right? Like don't reinvent the wheel over and over and over and over. Get paid more for the stuff you've already made. Gina says, what is the secret to a successful business conference that I will be a vendor at? Success equals lead and or conversions and meeting setup. I'll just tell you what worked for us. Like I wouldn't say like we've had conferences figured out, but I've been doing conferences off and on for like 12 years, 13 years, something like that. More than a few minutes. The first thing is, it sounds really stupid obvious, but you'd be amazed at how often people don't do that. Give people a reason to stop at your booth. Like, and most people's booth basically just says their company name. Creative Imaging, Frankie Finn's company, and you don't even know what it is or what they do or how they would help you. And so the first thing to me is catching their eyes, and ideally with a problem you solve, and if you can do it visually, even more powerful. So like, for example, how do you guys sell websites? Like I would show before and after pictures of websites in my booth behind me and go, Psh. Or if you sell SEO, like a picture of a plumber, #1 in Google, Jay's Plumbing, #1. 145 5-star reviews, right? Like that's what I would aim to have. So that's what first thing is, like really thinking about like how do you actually get them to stop. Now the second thing is you have to have some kind of irresistible offer that is not the full sale but leads into it. And I'll tell you what's worked for us because I sold a lot of SEO. And credit to John Marenko for being a genius and really kind of figuring this out. Is easiest way is not to have to fill in, opt in. It's just say, give me your business card and I will run an analysis for you next week, next couple of days when I'm home. And that's it. And so people just leave their business card in a stack and you get a list of interested leads handed to you like that. So that has also worked for us. And then the last piece is like, I think maybe 50% of it is what happens at the conference and 50% of it is the follow-up or the lack of follow-up. For a lot of people, conferences don't work because there's no follow-up, there's no sales, you don't go into a CRM, there's no systematic way of keeping in touch with people who said, I'm interested in a website or I'm interested in SEO. But for us, it's like, and I'm a big fan, like my favorite tool for follow-up, by the way, is we do a lot of this, is I use click-to-mail as direct mail. Especially when you're just like, if you get 30 leads at a conference, you can it costs $1 to send a letter, $30 you can drop a letter in the mail, and often we just have ChatGPT write the letter. Click to mail, you click a couple buttons, you can mass personalize mail to all those people. But you have to have some systematic way of following up, whether it's an email list or just manual reach out or text messages. Like you have to have some systematic way to, follow up the prospects who said I'm interested, because you're almost always like somebody's dropping by the booth every couple of minutes at a busy conference, and so you don't really have time to like sell a whole website or SEO package start to finish. You may be able to run like a 2-minute kind of analysis. Like, so that was another thing we did. Is like, hey, I'll run an analysis for you right on the spot. There's nothing to buy. If you want our help, fixing the problems that we find, happy to do that. But for now, I'll just show you where you're at. Here, this is you. You see, I just Googled plastic surgery Dallas. You're number 8. And then let me show you why. This is. Let me pull up your profile. See your profile. You got 127 linking domains. Okay, I'm gonna pull up number 1. You see how they got 1,200 linking domains? That's why you're behind them. You're at least 1,000 behind them, right? Do you understand that? So if you're gonna pass them, you got to have at least 2,000 and better quality. Does that make sense to you? Right? So that's what's worked well for us. Figure out a way to get them to stop. Make it easy to say yes. Like drop a business card to get more info, whatever, and then have some systematic follow-up, and you'll find that conferences can just crush it. Just totally crush it. Priyankar, hope I'm saying that right. He says, I have an agency. We provide motion graphics, video editing, and social media content. How can I get more clients? So I talked about this a lot, but I don't think enough people really understand this in depth. You're not really selling the thing that you think you're selling. So in your case, like it's motion graphics and social media content and video editing, and because in your mind that's what you do after somebody hires you, that is in your interpretation what you think it is. And a lot of times people we're so close to our deliverable, like we think that's the actual thing. So this doesn't matter, by the way, if you guys are out there listening to this, I do SEO, it's different, or I do pay-per-click, or I got to go high level SaaS, or I got AI chatbots, or I do funnels for people, or I help them write copy. Like it's no different across any of those. And people are hiring you to solve problems in their lives and to create outcomes. That's it. And because like 99% of the journey is the gap, and I call this the plane ride. So like if you think about somebody who's on a plane, anytime I've ever bought a flight, my number one consideration in the flight is like, do they get me there as quickly, efficiently, as possible, right? So like say for example, for a lot of years, I flew, because I grew up in Windsor, Canada, I flew out of Detroit, Michigan, which is like, I don't know, the airport there is like 25 minutes away. And it's a lot of flights out of Detroit. And let's say I had a conference I was going to in Atlanta, then my number one consideration would be like, I want to leave Detroit and go to Atlanta. Now I say that to you because imagine you're the airline selling the airline. The worst thing you can do is talk about the long journey to get there. You can say, well, it's a 4.5 hour flight and you're going to be cramped up in tiny little seats, and we don't even have a TV, there's no headphones, the air conditioning is going to be broken, it's hot as fuck. When we bring you a drink, it's going to be this big and it'll be $5.50 and you can only pay with a credit card. And at some point, we're going to bring you 3 peanuts as if that's going to hold you over. And it's going to be cramped and it's going to be uncomfortable. And at some point, we're going to land and everybody's going to stand up and you're going to be like, hurry the hell up and get off there. Like the worst thing you can do as an airline is sell the journey. The most important thing is you sell, get out of Detroit and get to your conference at Atlanta quickly and efficiently as possible. So to me, for you to actually do that, you need to decide firstly who you're making motion graphics for and who you're editing for and who you're doing social media content for. And then you need to figure out what those people want and make it all about building the thing they want. So for example, here's an example of a niche. I wrote a book. There are many other people who wrote books. So say you decided I'm going to do motion graphics and social media content for authors, ideally even ones who are already successful, best-selling authors. Now the nature of your promise changes. Why do they want to edit videos? Why do they want to make social media? Why do they want motion graphics or video editing or whatever? Sorry, I'm probably repeating myself, but why do they want those things? Because they want to sell some fucking books. So it's like, I'm going to create videos to sell your book. I'm going to create social media to sell your book. I'm going to do motion graphics to sell your book. Do you see how it's all about what they want, selling their book, and not about the thing you do? Right? So I say that because so many times we're so close to our thing that you present your thing as your thing. And I'll give you an example of this. Like in the real world, if you position this correctly, I've gone on Fiverr many times. Like I've hired over 1,000 people off of Fiverr over the years and hired graphics. And I pay like $5, $10, $20 for graphics. Now, if somebody else took the same graphic design skill and they said, I make New York Times best-selling covers for New York Times best-selling authors, that is still graphic design, but I bet you they could get $10,000 at least for that same work other people in the same industry struggle to get $10 for. And the reason is very simple, because it's about a specific person and a specific outcome and a specific problem they're trying to accomplish. And so the missing piece is figuring out who you're going to do your shit for. In other words, pick a niche. Figure out what your niche wants. Make your thing about what they want, not about you and what you do. And even though you and what you do is how they get the thing they want, it just lands differently. And I mentioned this the other day, but I think we intuitively understand this as children. So like growing up in Canada, when Frankie Finn was out there trying to make some side hustle money, this is what I did. In the hot season, you knock on doors and you say, you want me to mow your lawn for you. And in the cold season, you say, you want me to shovel your driveway for you. And you knock on doors. And what will happen is you typically do it, and then you get 10, 20, sometimes like 30, 40, $50 if the person's feeling super generous. But you don't complicate that promise, right? Like, in fact, very little of the promise is the doing. Do you want me to mow your lawn? It's a very clear outcome. Like, your grass is cut, and you don't have to do it, right? I don't talk about me and my process. I don't say, hey, I got the lawnmower 9000. It's got the extra fuel additive. It makes low RPMs, so it's real quiet. It goes back and forth. It has a wider turning ratio. Like, they don't give a fuck about any of that. They want their lawn done, right? And so I say that because, like, if I look at 20 agency websites, 19 are metaphorically talking about the plane ride or the lawn mowing process instead of just like, when it's done, your lawn will be mowed. When it's done, the snow will be shoveled. Not, I got the plastic doohickey 900 and it's got an ergonomic handle and it's galvanized so that it can extra stand cold weather, and I got thermal gloves so I can withstand the cold. Like, they don't care about any of that. But that's the stuff we metaphorically talk about. And so if you want to sell your stuff, decide on who you want to do it for, and then create a valuable outcome to them, not to you, to them, what it does for them. And what you'll find is, like, people become, like, much more open to it, to buying that kind of thing. Didn't write down this person's name. A new agency owner here. I'm looking to start cold calling to get clients, but I'm getting a lot of difficulty in setting up a phone system. I've tried Skype, but the answer rate with Skype is terrible. I tried using Twilio as well, but I'm facing a real hard time verifying the regulatory bundle. By the way, I'm from Pakistan, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm getting these hurdles. Looking for recommendations on any phone system that could work for me, or any methods you guys could recommend to go get my first client. I'm providing SEO and Google Ads service. Thanks in advance. P.S. I'm 17 years old, managing my family after my father's death last year. Well, firstly, dude, like, that's intense, managing a family 17 years old because your dad died. So kudos to you. And I want to be real with you guys about some shit. Like, for those of you guys who are in our community, who are from places like India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, you have twice the hurdles to overcome, because marketers as a whole do not have a generally great reputation. People don't go, marketers are awesome. And generally they view us as full of shit, making exaggerated promises that we don't really fulfill on. And I've joked about this with personal injury attorneys, but I've said the only people with worse reputations than you guys are us, because people also hate lawyers. Just because you're a lawyer, you're hated. And you guys have this double. If you're seen from India and Pakistan, you're like extra scammy in most people's minds. And so in order to overcome that, you have to, like, really take the risk out of working with you more than most people would in other parts of the world. And so the way you do this, by the way, is to really demonstrate for people that you can actually help them. And I'll give you an example of how I've done this over the years with SEO. And it's really simple, by the way. So for those of you guys who followed me, like, I don't know, a year and a half ago, I did something called the 90-day challenge. And the idea was really, really simple. A bunch of people kept asking me, if you were me, you're restarting, you're building an agency from nothing, what would you do? And rather than like build a course or talk about it, I just built it. And I just trying to clear the 10K hurdle and show people how to do it. We ended up hitting like 15K in 26 days, 25 days, like recurring. And that was kind of that journey. And I laid out kind of the process in doing it. And one of the steps in there is at some point you get people to say like, hey, I'm interested. And the SEO hook is really, really simple. It's like, can I run a free analysis? Now, if I was from India or Pakistan, I would not ask their permission. I would just run the analysis and show them that I can actually help them. And what will happen is instead of mass messaging people, which is what most people think, is I would really focus on the people who've proven to spend money on it and show them like, I can help you. And the SEO reports that I've made are really, really simple. Is I take their website and a competitor website and I load them up side by side and I show them all their numbers and all their math and all their analytics and their competitors. And usually there's a gap between them. Like, hey, this competitor, ABC Construction, is number 1 with 150 reviews and you're number 7. And I want to show you why you're number 7 and not number 1. And you show them side by side, like this. They have this many backlinks. They have this much. They have this many reviews. They're this well. They've optimized this. You haven't. They got a better website than you. Or they got like 26 pages of content here. You got a glorified business card. And then when you show them, I simply summarize that into a plan of like, this is the first thing I would get started on fixing. Your reviews, your SEO, your citations. Let's optimize your website. And I would simply sell them step 1 of that journey in a very, very low risk way. And if I was from India or Pakistan, I might even do it for free, knowing that some of the time I would not get paid for that work, but a lot of the time I would. And I would simply say like, hey, say your recommendation is step 1, let me optimize your website. I'd say, hey, I know you don't probably trust somebody from Pakistan in your case. I'd like to show you that me personally, I am trustworthy. And so if you want, I will just optimize your website first before you have to pay me a cent. And then when it's done, if we both agree that you're happy with that work, then you can pay me and we can talk about steps 2 and 3 because I would like to do more work for you. If you do it from that place, people are going to have a real hard time saying no. And I'll give you my favorite example of this, okay? So I saw a thread. I don't even know this person personally, but I saw a thread and they said, how did you go get your first client? And my favorite example is there's a lady in there who talked about getting her first web design client. And she said, basically, this is what I did. There was a local restaurant that had posted in a local group and say they were interested in getting a new website. And they had like 800 people comment, like, I can build a website. As you know, there's no shortage of websites. Now, knowing they were in the market for a website, she actually designed a mock-up website for them. And then she physically printed it out on paper. And she had their old site printed out on paper and their new mock-up. And she went in and sat down with the owner and said, this is your old website. This is what I want to build for you. And the reason why she got hired, by the way, the reason why they chose her and not all of the other 800 people is not because some magic script or some magic messaging, because she actually did the work before getting hired. And so I don't recommend doing mountains of work that you may or may not get paid for, but the first meaningful step for them, give them the most amount of value you can in step 1 in a way that'll meaningfully help for them. And for me, SEO is just let me run the analysis. Because most of the work is fixing the problems you uncover in the analysis anyway. But if you show people this is what I found, this is where your competitors, this is where the gap is, this is what you need to do to close those things, I've already given you value and it only makes sense to get that solution for me. So that's how I would go about it in your shoes. And I know that's most people, by the way, are not comfortable with scenarios where they don't get paid for every single solitary thing they do, and that's why they actually don't make a lot of money. So I've seen this a lot in SEO, where clients will propose the idea of rank me first, and then I'll pay you second, and people are I'd never do that. And I don't recommend you do it in those scenarios, but the idea that you would never do anything for somebody first before getting paid, I think is backwards. What your job is to do is to give them the most amount of value on step 1 that you can, in the way that's most energy efficient for you. So for me, running an SEO analysis on a company takes me 5 fucking minutes because I already know which tools to use. I know what to say. I know what to look for. And so I can give you a shit ton of value. But like, I'm only investing 5 minutes in showing you that. Like, I ain't investing a lifetime of shit in there. So anyway, I hope that's helpful to you guys. That looks like, I don't know if you guys have dropped any comments today. Sometimes I just don't see them, or if it's just you guys are quietly creeping away in the background listening to this. That's cool too, either way. But I don't see any comments on here for other questions. So I think that's probably good for today. As I mentioned before, for those of you guys who missed the intro, for those of you guys who are interested in going phoneless and eliminating meetings out of the machine that you have, like, we have a step-by-step course that walks you through that has already like it mapped out in templates, and it's really just paint by numbers. It's like, this is the result I get. Show them a picture. Show them something like this. Then here, say who this is for. Then, tell them in 3 to 5 steps how it works. Then put your price here. Then tell them this is what they're going to get for the price. Then tell them this works really well if, and then tell them how to sign up and click the button below. And it's like, it's a templatized VSL, if you will. So anyways, if you guys are interested in that, check that out at our store. You can go to beyondagencyprofits.com, check out the store. I just think it's really, really cool. I think it's like one of the most life-changing things you can do is to stop chasing sales the way everybody else does, and to start like bringing people to you pre-sold and closing them through video. And what ends up happening is, you can spend way more time leading people and less time chasing people. So anyways, I hope that's helpful to you guys. That's all I got for me in this Monday. Much love. May the force be with you. And happy Monday, guys. Guys, if you like this video, you're also going to want to grab some free bonuses, which you can get at our website, Beyond Agency Profits. To make it easy for you, I've put the links to it in the description of this video, as well as pinned in the top comment. And we've got a couple of awesome things. This is what you'll get after you sign up. You get some of our best training, how we're closing clients over Loom videos, how we sometimes sign clients that is not a misprint for under $5 US, how to demonstrate your value in like amazing ways, trainings, how to have your clients write the best copy of your life, how we're closing without phone calls, campaigns that we've generated for clients that have done over $100,000, as well as scripts you can use to get conversations going with clients in under 10 minutes. All you got to simply do is go there, enter your name and email address, and then this is what you'll see on the other side. So if that's interesting to you, make sure to click the links below, and I will see you on the other side.